Welcome to the Curated Pod. I'm your host, Aiden Ives. We have a great show for you today. We're going to cover the latest news in business, tech, and politics. If you're looking for a quick and easy way to stay informed on the latest events, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. You won't believe what just happened in the Bitcoin world. A wallet from 2010, completely dormant for 14 years, suddenly transferred 2,000 Bitcoin to Coinbase. At today's prices, that's $178 million. Let that sink in. Someone who bought Bitcoin when it was worth pennies is now moving hundreds of millions of dollars. This actually concerns me, and here's why. When these early wallets start moving coins, it often means they're preparing to sell. And with Bitcoin at these price levels, I can't entirely blame them, but it could create some serious selling pressure in the market. While this early holder might be looking to exit, our new Bitcoin exchange traded funds are absorbing massive amounts of Bitcoin. They now hold 1.05 million Bitcoin. That's 96% of what Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin's creator, is estimated to hold. The traditional financial system that many early Bitcoin believers wanted to bypass is now becoming one of Bitcoin's biggest holders. These exchange-traded funds are having their best year ever, with flows potentially hitting $1 trillion. Mark my words, we're going to see more of these dormant wallets come alive as prices stay hot. But unlike previous cycles, we now have serious institutional infrastructure to handle large sellers. The game has changed, folks. Bitcoin isn't just for crypto enthusiasts anymore. It's become a legitimate institutional asset. The United Kingdom has truly lost its way when it comes to free speech, and what's happening there right now should concern every single one of us. Let me tell you what's going on. Police in the United Kingdom are now recording what they call non-crime hate incidents for children as young as 9 years old. Think about that for a moment. They're creating permanent records for grade school children using inappropriate language or name-calling. This is absolutely outrageous government overreach, and now they're actually considering arresting Elon Musk, one of the world's most influential tech leaders, over social media posts. Elon rightfully called the United Kingdom a police state, and he's absolutely correct. The British government claims these measures protect vulnerable groups from hate speech. But let's be honest, this is about control and suppression of speech they don't want. When you start monitoring children's playground talk and threatening to arrest people for tweets, you're not protecting anyone. You're intimidating everyone into silence. What we're seeing in the United Kingdom is a direct assault on fundamental human rights. They've created this Orwellian system where police can record so-called incidents that aren't even crime. These records can follow people for years, affecting their employment prospects and personal lives, and they're doing this to children. This should serve as a stark warning to Americans about the importance of protecting our First Amendment rights. We cannot allow this type of government control to take root here. The moment we start compromising on free speech is the moment we lose everything that makes our democracy work. We're seeing some major developments in technology today that highlight the ongoing battle between innovation and established interests. Starlink is expanding into India, which could be revolutionary for millions of people who lack reliable internet access. But here's where it gets interesting. Mukesh Ambani's Reliance is practically begging India's telecom regulators to stop Starlink and Amazon's Project Kuiper from entering the market. What they're really saying is they're scared, and honestly, they should be. Reliance admits that Starlink's satellite capacity could match their entire 15 billion gigabyte data capacity. Meanwhile, in Canada, we're seeing what satellite internet can really do. Ontario just partnered with Starlink through their Ontario Satellite Internet program to connect 15,000 remote homes and businesses. That's real progress, not the kind of protectionist nonsense we're seeing from Reliance. And speaking of Elon Musk, his artificial intelligence company XA is reportedly raising $6 billion at a $50 billion valuation. They're planning to purchase 100,000 NVIDIA chips for a new supercomputer. This is exactly the kind of bold private sector innovation we need, not government interference and regulations holding technology back. Mainstream media won't tell you this, but these developments show how free market competition drives innovation and progress. We need to get government regulators out of the way and let companies like Starlink and XA transform our technological landscape. Let me share something alarming that should make every American concerned about our nation's health. A new study from The Lancet shows that nearly 3/4 of American adults are now overweight or obese. And what's even more concerning is that people are becoming overweight at younger and younger ages. This is exactly what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been warning us about. Despite the mainstream media's attempts to discredit him, RFK Jr. is taking a brave stand against big agriculture, big pharma, and the insurance companies that have created this crisis. You know what's fascinating about this? These were traditionally left-wing positions before COVID changed everything. The left used to be the ones fighting against these massive corporations that profit from keeping Americans sick. But as soon as RFK Jr. decided to challenge Biden, suddenly they abandoned those principles. Cowley Means, who is one of RFK's key health advisors, has laid out exactly how our health and food institutions are fundamentally broken. And remember, Means was no fan of Trump, but even he recognizes that our system needs massive reform. This isn't about politics anymore. This is about the survival of our nation's health. Three-quarters of Americans are overweight or obese. That's not just a statistic, that's a national emergency. And instead of addressing it, the establishment is more concerned with protecting their political interests and attacking anyone who dares to challenge the status quo. Without serious reform of these corrupt institutions, this crisis will only get worse. Americans deserve better than a healthcare system that profits from keeping them sick. We're seeing a massive shift in the fight for free speech in America right now. A series of major developments have brought the reality of coordinated censorship into clear view. First, President Trump has filed a $10 billion lawsuit against several major media outlets, including the New York Times and CBS, for what he claims is deliberate defamation. This is a significant legal challenge that could expose how these organizations operate. Even more concerning is what FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr just revealed. He's formally accused tech giants Apple, Meta, Microsoft, and Alphabet of running what he calls a censorship cartel. They're actively working together to suppress certain political speech. Elon Musk has been sounding the alarm about this exact issue, calling for an immediate end to both censorship and coordinated advertising boycott. And if you needed more proof of the authoritarian mindset we're dealing with, former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki is now calling for actual laws to be changed to combat what she calls disinformation. This is absolutely chilling. We're watching people who once worked at the highest levels of government openly advocate for restricting free speech. The evidence of coordination between big tech, mainstream media, and government officials to control what Americans can say and see is overwhelming. This isn't just about content moderation anymore. This is about power and control. We need to support these legal challenges and investigations before we lose our fundamental right to speak freely in this country. Let me address these absurd claims about Democrats forming a parallel government structure. Social media is causing unnecessary panic over standard political opposition tactics. What we're really seeing is the typical Democratic playbook of resistance, not some kind of shadow government formation. The claim started when several social media personalities, including Tim Pool, began spreading concerns about Democrats allegedly planning alternative government structures. This stemmed from discussions about how Democrats might respond to a potential Trump victory in 2024. Let me be clear, while I strongly disagree with Democratic opposition to Trump, these claims of a parallel government are completely overblown. There is zero concrete evidence of Democratic leaders actually attempting to form any kind of shadow structure. What we're seeing is standard opposition party behavior being sensational. Historical precedent shows opposition parties work within the constitutional framework. Even during times of extreme political division, like under Andrew Jackson's presidency, the opposition Whig Party still operated within the system. They didn't try to create some parallel government. The real story here is about maintaining proper constitutional checks and balances. Democrats will likely focus on congressional oversight and legislative challenges, which is their right, even though I disagree with their agenda. But claims about them forming an unconstitutional parallel government structure are not based in reality. This kind of exaggerated rhetoric only serves to further divide us when we need to focus on the actual policy debates ahead. This is absolutely incredible news for anyone who cares about fixing our bloated government bureaucracy. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are stepping up to host weekly live streams updating the public on the Department of Government Efficiency's progress. This is exactly the kind of transparency and private sector leadership we desperately need. The status quo in Washington has completely failed the American people. Our government wastes billions of taxpayer dollars through inefficient systems and bloated bureaucracy. We need major disruptors to come in and completely transform how things operate. What's really encouraging is the focus on getting actual legislation passed rather than relying on executive order. Executive orders can be wiped away as soon as a new administration takes office. We saw this with President Trump's orders being immediately reversed. Real, lasting change has to come through Congress. And let me be crystal clear about something. Any Republican who doesn't support massive budget cuts needs to stop pretending they believe in limited government. You can't have it both ways. Our national debt is completely out of control, and we need leaders willing to make tough decisions. Now, will this initiative face resistance from the entrenched bureaucrats who benefit from the current broken system? Absolutely. But having successful business leaders like Musk and Ramaswamy leading the charge, combined with unprecedented transparency through these weekly updates, gives us the best shot we've had in decades at meaningful reform. The American people deserve nothing less. The state of our election integrity is reaching a truly concerning point. In Pennsylvania, we're witnessing something absolutely outrageous. The Bucks County Commissioner openly stated, and I quote, "People violate laws anytime they want while voting to count provisional ballots that were specifically barred by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court." This is a direct violation of clear legal precedent stating that mail ballots with missing or improper dates cannot be counted. Then we look at California, where election officials are demonstrating complete disregard for urgency. They're sitting on 1.7 million uncounted ballots, and instead of working to complete the count efficiently, they're actually bragging about taking their time. The election officials there are saying they take pride in not being rushed, pride in slow counting. This is absolutely unacceptable. What we're seeing here is a systematic breakdown of election integrity. When Democratic officials openly defy Supreme Court rulings in Pennsylvania, and California treats vote counting like some kind of leisure activity, we have a serious problem. Mark my words, this will lead to increased legal challenges, and rightfully so. Republicans will need to file lawsuits in Pennsylvania to enforce the Supreme Court rule. The intentionally slow counting in California will become a major issue in upcoming elections. And honestly, it should. We need strict oversight and consequences for election officials who think they can simply ignore the law. President Trump just announced a bold plan to create what he's calling a warrior board. And let me tell you, this is exactly what our military needs right now. The board will be made up of retired generals and officers who will identify and remove military leaders who've been pushing these ridiculous diversity inclusion programs instead of focusing on what really matters: combat readiness and battlefield effectiveness. Elon Musk has already endorsed this plan as very reasonable, and he's absolutely right. You know what really gets me fired up? The current military leadership has been so focused on social experiments and identity politics that they've completely lost sight of what makes America's fighting force the most powerful in the world. This isn't about politics, it's about national security. And the fact is, when you're in a firefight, you don't care about your squad's diversity statistics. You care about their ability to fight and win. Now, I know the mainstream media is going to portray this as some kind of political purge, but they're wrong. This is about restoring our military to its core mission of defending America. And with Larry Kudlow potentially coming in to handle economic policy, we're seeing Trump build a seriously competent team that knows how to get things done. The simple truth is our military's effectiveness has been compromised by these woke policies. And while this board might cause some short-term disruption, it's absolutely necessary for our long-term security. We need military leaders focused on winning wars, not winning diversity awards. What we saw at Mar-a-Lago last night was absolutely incredible. Donald Trump hosted a meeting with Argentina's President Javier Milei and Elon Musk, marking the first time a foreign leader has met with Trump since his primary victory. And let me tell you, the energy in that room must have been electric. The mainstream media won't tell you this, but President Milei actually performed what people are calling the Trump dance at Trump Tower. That's the kind of genuine connection and enthusiasm we're seeing between these conservative leaders, while the current administration can barely string two coherent sentences together. The Washington Examiner just published a cover story about the humanization of Trump, and they're absolutely right. Americans are seeing the real Donald Trump, not the caricature that the liberal media has been pushing for years. This meeting represents something much bigger than just a diplomatic visit. We're witnessing the formation of a powerful conservative alliance. You have Trump, a proven leader who puts America first. You have Milei, who's fighting against socialism in Argentina, and you have Elon Musk, who's standing up to the tech establishment. The left is terrified of this meeting because it shows that conservative values are spreading globally. They can't control the narrative anymore when leaders can communicate directly through social media. This is exactly what we need heading into the election. Strong leaders working together, bypassing the mainstream media filters, and showing what real leadership looks like. We're seeing a significant shift in the advertising landscape as major companies, including Disney, IBM, Comcast, and Warner Brothers Discovery, announced they will resume advertising on X platform. This is a massive validation of what we've been saying all along about the mainstream media's attempts to destroy X through their coordinated boycott campaign. Linda Yaccarino and her team at X have done remarkable work rebuilding advertiser relationships, and Elon Musk himself publicly thanked them for restoring confidence in the platform. Now, I want to be completely transparent here. The current advertising budgets are still lower than before. Disney is only spending about $550,000 compared to Comcast's $1.5 million. But this absolutely demolishes the narrative that X was going to collapse without mainstream advertisers. The platform has maintained its commitment to free speech while implementing reasonable brand safety measures. The liberal media complex tried to destroy X because they couldn't control it anymore. They failed. What we're seeing now is just the beginning. More major brands will return throughout 2024 as they realize they can't afford to ignore X's massive engaged audience. The truth is, X under Elon Musk's leadership has proven that you don't have to bow to woke corporate pressure to run a successful platform. This is a win for free speech and a major defeat for those who tried to use advertiser pressure to force censorship. Let me tell you about the absolute madness we're seeing from prominent female figures in politics right now. Elizabeth Warren, who I used to respect as a serious politician, went on MSNBC making wild accusations about Tulsi Gabbard being in Putin's pocket with zero evidence. This is McCarthyism, plain and simple. Dangerous accusations of treason without a shred of proof. And then we have this comedian, Gina Friedman, who thought it would be funny to name her unborn child Jeffrey Epstein, claiming it's okay because it's just a fetus, not a person. This kind of callous disregard for human life is exactly what's wrong with the radical left's approach to serious issues. The media's response to all this has been telling. When conservative men make controversial statements, they're attacked on substance. But when these liberal women do it, the criticism gets dismissed as sexism. Let's be clear. This isn't about gender. It's about accountability. You can't just make baseless accusations of treason or mock the sanctity of life and expect to hide behind claims of misogyny when you're called out. As we head into the 2020 election cycle, I guarantee we'll see more of this inflammatory rhetoric. The left will keep pushing boundaries and crying discrimination when they face pushback. We need to stay focused on the actual issues, not identity politics. The latest developments in our border policy are exactly what we need right now. Tom Homan, who will serve as border czar under President Trump, has laid out a powerful strategy that's going to fundamentally transform how we handle the catastrophic situation at our southern border. Let me tell you what's actually going to happen. President Trump and Tom Homan are going to treat these cartels exactly like we treated ICE. They're going to be wiped off the face of the earth using American special operations and intelligence capabilities. We're going to track these criminals down and follow their money trails until they're eliminated. And here's what's really important. These liberal governors who think they can obstruct federal immigration enforcement are about to learn a serious lesson. Tom Homan made it crystal clear. They can either help or get out of the way. The American people gave President Trump a mandate, and these deportation operations are going to proceed regardless of state opposition. The left keeps citing legal precedents about state involvement in immigration, but let me be absolutely clear. Federal immigration law supersedes state obstruction. We've seen the horrific consequences of their sanctuary policies. Just look at the Lake and Wiley case. These policies are getting Americans killed. This aggressive approach is exactly what we need. The cartels have been operating with impunity for far too long, and anyone who opposes these measures is choosing to side with criminals over the safety of American citizens. That's the plain truth. We're finally going to see real action to secure our borders and protect our community. Media reaction: Trump potentially appointing Matt Gaetz as Attorney General has been absolutely priceless. Reports are coming in that CNN reporters were actually crying about it. Crying. This tells you everything you need to know about whether Gaetz is the right person for the job. Let me explain something important about Matt Gaetz and his history with the Department of Justice. There was an FBI investigation into someone Gaetz knew who ended up pleading guilty, but it was crystal clear the Department of Justice and FBI were more interested in trying to target Gaetz himself than the actual guilty party. This is exactly the kind of weaponized justice system that needs to be reformed. Now, some establishment Republicans who voted to confirm Merrick Garland are questioning whether they'd support Gaetz, the same Merrick Garland who has overseen one of the most politically motivated Department of Justices in history. These Republicans showed terrible judgment with Garland, and now they want to lecture us about Gaetz. Give me a break. The fact that we're seeing this level of panic from the mainstream media and the establishment tells me Matt Gaetz is exactly who we need to clean up the corrupt Department of Justice. Their tears are validation that he'll be effective at draining the swamp. The more they cry, the more confident I am that Trump is making the right choice. Details emerging from the Lake and Riley murder case are absolutely horrific, and they demonstrate exactly why we need serious immigration reform in this country. The prosecutor revealed that Jose Ibarra, who was in our country illegally, repeatedly struck Lakin's skull with a rock. They have forensic evidence, digital evidence, and video evidence supporting. And most chilling of all, they played Lakin's 9/11 call in court where you can allegedly hear a voice at the 55-second mark. This absolutely infuriates me. This beautiful young woman would still be alive if we had proper border security. And speaking of border security, former ICE Director Tom Homan outlined an aggressive but necessary approach that President Trump is proposing. The plan is to treat these Mexican cartels exactly like we treated ISIS, using our special operations forces and intelligence capabilities to track them down and eliminate them. This is exactly the kind of decisive action we need. In New York, we're seeing more details about the Daniel Penny. The interrogation footage shows Penny clearly explaining that his actions were about protecting subway passengers. He wasn't trying to harm Jordan Neal. This is what happens when law enforcement is defunded and citizens are forced to protect themselves. The mainstream media won't tell you this, but crime in New York has gotten completely out of control under progressive policies. These cases prove what many of us have been saying. We need strong borders, we need supported law enforcement, and we need to stop letting progressive policies destroy our city.